You're listening to From the Horse's Mouth, intrepid conversations with Phil Fersht. Ready to meet the disruptors who are guiding us to the new great utopia by reshaping our world and pushing past corporate spin for honest conversations about the future impact of current and emerging technologies? Tune in now.
Terrific. Yeah, so it's great to get time today with somebody I've known in the industry for, 15 years, some maybe longer, something like that, but a very respected voice in the world of sourcing, technology, AI, RPA, you name it, he's done it, he's been there. So welcome, Todd Lohr. Maybe you could share with our audience a little bit about your background and a little bit about what you're doing today.
Sure, great. Thanks, Phil. Looking forward to the conversation, and thanks for having me on. As you said, Todd Lohr, I'm with KPMG. I've had various roles over that decade plus of you and I working together. More recently, I was the head of our technology business in the U.S., so focused on technology consulting, all things, strategy through selection, through implementation, scaling of technology, getting to play at the forefront of the shiny new objects as those came to market. So working, closely in the AI automation space together over the last 5-10 years and beyond. More recently, I'm excited to have taken on a new role with KPMG. It is a newly formulated role that kind of tilts our hand a little bit at our intentions of, the intersection of partnerships and our strategy. So my new title is Head of Ecosystems, and I'm really focused really on, taking what has been a great historic partnership model of technology alliances and other kind of third parties that we work with, but really kind of elevating that to the next level and looking at the strategic importance of how we work with other providers and the impact to our business model.
Yeah, I love this head of ecosystems concept. It's something I'm starting to hear more and more from various people, and we're actually thinking of getting one ourselves because we work in a crazy ecosystem at HFS. But can you talk to us a bit about why this is different from these normative alliances or partnership roles that we hear about?
Yeah, I think, and this is certainly a phrase that is being used more broadly in the market. I think historically, to your point, that the term alliances, and we still have an alliance portfolio, right? This is not a we're getting rid of alliances. It's an evolution of our thinking around those alliances. So historically, our focus with third parties, partnerships, as an example, specifically in our advisory business, there's some variation if you think about our audit and tax business. But in our advisory business, it's been historically marked by large technology providers, right? So sometimes we call them platforms, but like the ERPs, the hyperscalers, the data platforms, right? So it's a list of technology companies where our clients have a need. We work as the professional services around those needs with the technology. So implementing those technologies, doing business transformation with those technologies in the ERP space, et cetera, right? So continuing to drive those relationships, but focusing our concept more on this term of ecosystem, representing a few things that have changed in the market. One is historically this one-to-one concept is where we've been focused, meaning it's KPMG plus one of those technology companies, and then we go create value for our clients, right? We're recognizing that the technology landscape is much more complex than that, and even just the world of professional services is much more complex from that, right? That the days of solving more simple things that our clients were interested in is being, changed with artificial intelligence. It's being changed with a whole host of micro, macro economics as well, right? So there's this pressure of the world of professional services is changing, requiring much more sophisticated solutions that our clients are looking to us to bring. And as such, the one-to-one relationships really needed to shift to a more of a many-to-many construct. So that brings the term ecosystem with intent and purpose, that we're thinking about how we help our clients with the ecosystem of providers and we see ourselves as an orchestrator of those ecosystems in our long-term strategy, and that we need to be really good at understanding our clients' needs and bringing the complexity of multiple alliances, multiple partnerships, not just technologies, potentially, data sources or, other service firms or, industry consortiums, right? Academia, innovation, startup ecosystems, right? There's a whole host of different ways to think about more collectively that ecosystem and how we support our clients.
Yeah, and but why is it different now? I mean, we've had a fairly complex technology ecosystem for many, many years. What is it about this latest wave of AI that's different to what we've seen before?
Yeah, I think, if you go back historically, I think we're at an inflection point, right? Where you see those pictures, and we've talked about this inflection point for the last decade. I think we're really at the inflection point. We maybe were a little ahead of the inflection point of what artificial intelligence was going to do to not only professional services, but also just businesses and the world more broadly. So you have the, kind of the industrial revolution that kind of had an inflection point. You have kind of the digital revolution that had an inflection point with the internet, computers, et cetera, right? That kind of changed things. I think we're at another inflection point, specifically fueled by AI, that's going to change business models, operating models, and our ability to support clients. Even AI itself is fueling the change. I think if you look at the current wave of AI, also recognizing that AI is not a new concept of the last 2 years, it's a concept that's been decades in the making. But again, the advancements in what happened about 2 years ago this time in the models and the efficacy of the transformer models that were coming to market, between the earlier versions of those and the more recent, and even what we've seen since then, it's changing how organizations are thinking about the adoption of AI, right? That has changed. We've been talking about AI adoption for at least a decade, but it is changing. And ecosystems is a really good example of that, because, the first 6 months of that kind of new wave, our clients thought that this was more of a traditional technology where, okay, I'm just gonna, where do I go build this? Where do I go buy this? Versus no, it's not so straightforward, because you're seeing compute sitting in a place and you have a partner for that. The large language models themselves sit elsewhere. The data sits elsewhere. You need to embed it in your workflow, right? And now agents are actually creating an entirely new layer of complexity on top of that. So I think our clients themselves are starting to recognize that even to solve AI, it's an ecosystem construct of how they need to stitch together, at least now in the market. I think you are going to see conversions over the next several years in the tech stack, but at least today, to solve some of these things, clients need to actually start creating their own ecosystems to solve those. And that's where, I think AI is certainly accelerating that.
Right. So what is it that, why KPMG? What is it that you are bringing to the table here that you think is different, unique from your competitors, other advisors in the industry?
Yeah, look, it's always a good question. The way we're looking at it is a couple things. One is taking a very sector-based lens, because again, the world that we're seeing is starting to pivot in what you solve, and what you need someone to help you solve is becoming more complex, and it's typically going at the parts of your business model or operating model that are very specialized in the sector that you are in, and you need that level of expertise. So we're really thinking about the ecosystem construct, or even our capabilities, in a very sector lens, right? So sector by sector, understanding the complexities of those industries, understanding the different providers, and you're seeing, whether it's within the startup ecosystem or within the AI ecosystem or within established technology players, you're seeing specialization by sector. So our focus really in the last year has been understanding the nuances of each sector, and then creating that ecosystem of, partnerships that we can start orchestrating in advance of our clients to be able to help them bridge the gap in those areas. And another thing that we're focused on, given our legacy brand of kind of trust and really helping our clients through all things in their risk agenda, is an ecosystem strategy actually creates differentiated third-party risk, other kinds of risk in your enterprise. And so we're seeing it both as a strategic enabler, but also something that can introduce new risk, and bringing them together in a way to be able to help our clients navigate that.
Right. So in terms of the types of engagements you're having right now, one of my observations has been heightened awareness to the point of frustration and a certain degree of paranoia amongst a broad set of clients that we engage with. I think we got some new data that shows 45% of enterprises are nervous, negative about, people within those enterprises are negative about AI, nervous about their jobs, etc. And only 15% are really positive about them. Is this something that, one, you're seeing, and two, what types of approaches are you adopting to get more positivity and bravery and excitement from your enterprises that you work with?
I think um, if you look back maybe 6 to 12 months, you didn't see necessarily the negativity. I think anyone who's been in the technology automation space, like you and I have been for years, understand that at some point the paranoia will set in when people start looking at job impact. I don't think in the wave that we're currently on with AI that you've seen a lot of job impact. I think you've seen a lot of productivity of very specific tasks, meaning, you go to your LLM, ask a question, it creates a better email, it synthesizes data. It's kind of, swivel chair infusion of insight into work, especially for knowledge workers, but you haven't seen kind of the scale impact to the workforce. So I don't think that there's always, look, the other thing that I would always say, media gets excited about job loss and paranoia because that is more interesting than, this is a, less the transformative technology at any point in time. So there's always that part of it. But I do think you're going to start seeing more of that kind of rhetoric in the next year. And the reason being is the adoption of agents, and agents are going to accelerate the value delivered, the use cases that can be addressed, the actual right? AI in the last 2 years has been really good at providing insight. We're moving from taking that insight into action, and action is where you start getting more wide productivity gains, right? And specifically, the types of agents that we can build with the LLMs today are different than any type of automation that we could build in the past. And so instead of like automating tasks, you're really going to be orchestrating entire value chains that is going to have massive productivity improvement. So that's, I do think the paranoia, although, depending on who you ask, is probably unfounded based upon looking backwards, but looking forward and the speed, I think, I don't know that I would use the word paranoia, but I do think organizations need to start thinking about the workforce implications and this is, again, no different from conversations you and I've had for over a decade. What is your obligation to your workforce? How do you make sure that you're providing transparency? How do you actually bring them along for the ride to incentivize them to use AI? Because we're still in this precarious state that a lot of the productivity and a lot of the value of AI is really based upon people using it. If they start getting concerned that there's, concern in how they're using it or why they're using it, then that's going to slow down the progress. And the way we're approaching it as a firm is really, we want to drive adoption. We want, what my folks and other leaders, the quote I am heard saying a lot is everyone every day. Right? I want everyone in the firm every day using AI, because I don't think that you can understand the disruption that's coming at the pace that it's coming if you're not actually exploring and using it day to day in your job to understand, where and how your job's going to pivot. And some of the best ideas are actually coming from our people using it. It's not something top down. It is really easy for leaders to say, this is where I'm going to go address it.
Right. So when we look at the current environment we're in, I don't want to get into a political conversation, but there's a lot of talk about pulling more work onshore, especially with tariffs and protectionism happening. Are you getting any vibes from industry folks that you talk to that clients are wanting to see more capabilities built onshore? And is this driving more interest in maybe, AI-driven services that are US-based that can help deal with the current predicament of globalization and everything going on?
Yeah, I think the trend that had already started, regardless of tariffs and whether we're going to tax offshore, kind of other labor outside the U.S., et cetera, right? Those conversations have already started, but not based upon the economic constructs of tariffs and the pricing of where labor sits physically. It was actually started with AI, right? And if you look at a lot of the work that has historically been, offshored or outsourced, coming in some of the more technology, AI was already kind of addressing that. And I think that's where, if you look at productivity gains in the last year, that is where you've seen a lot of like it, and especially in software modernization, coding, engineering, a lot, quality testing, think about the software development lifecycle. That's already been pretty well disrupted in terms of what AI can do. So I think the two of those kind of coming together, I don't know that necessarily will drive people faster to um, onshore engineering, but it might drive them faster to taking some of that tech work that has been done and accelerating their adoption of AI, especially in an environment where there's a tariff kind of overlay against the workforce.
Right. So how do you see the future of services in general? So if we look out, 5 years even, I mean, you get into science fiction at this point, but where do you think this is heading? You've been as close as I have to this industry for a couple of decades now. Do you see it taking a really significant shift in its
I do.
direction?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think a lot of our, again, looking at more of a pure professional services consulting type model, a lot of the work of the last decade has been in helping clients sort through and implement SaaS, especially from a technology perspective. There's obviously a whole breadth of services out there. But when I talk about where kind of a lot of value creation has happened in enterprises, it's adopting enterprise SaaS and kind of bringing that in to standardize, streamline, automate their work. I see the next wave for the next 10 years as inverted SaaS, meaning it's no longer software as a service, but services as a software, right? Very similar to how you guys are positioning it. And the future as such is it's less about me helping my clients implement SaaS and get the transformative business value from doing that. It's more about me creating services that actually let them leverage my insight, my 130 years of experience as a professional services firm, through something that looks closer to a managed service, ultimately something that looks even closer to services and software, right? So things that start looking more like a product. So that's really where we're spending a lot of our time, is really understanding that market and where we see our business, and where can we start taking the things that we've done traditionally today and start disrupting our own delivery and business model to be able to accommodate what we think are going to be the buying preferences from our clients in the next 10 years.
Right. So are we ready for this change? Is KPMG generally ready to build the talent up to deliver this? And are your clients ready to really go through this type of change? I mean, we all get the concept. It all sounds very good. That's lovely to talk about outcomes. But then when we get down to the brass tacks, it's a lot. I mean, we're talking about moving work from maybe people offshore, now to people to computers. It's a very different concept. So how ready are we for this change?
I think I think, and I'll start maybe with the how ready are clients. I do think our clients have started to think about this already, right? And obviously BPO, right? The whole outsourcing, the wave that your organization and you've been very much a part of has differentiated how our clients think about, where work and how work gets done, and thinking of it outside of their own four walls, right? So to your point, this is similar to that, but at the same time different, because it's not recoding your workforce or even getting, a different workforce in a different location to drive the value. It's kind of shifting that again to, an agent that looks like, a monthly subscription fee, right? Which is where, if you start looking at like some of the roadmaps of both the large technology providers as well as the labs and the LLMs, that is where they're going, is the ability to, your monthly subscription for, access to AI is actually going to be access to an agent. That agent is going to be, pretty sophisticated in what it can do. So I think it's that is going to be a shift. I think getting comfortable with that shift, there's, and again, the technology is going to take time to develop, and especially bringing this really awesome technology and then butting it into a lot of organizations that still have mainframe and a lot of legacy applications is something that, how do you meld the old with the new and continue to run the company? I think that's where organizations are going to have the biggest lift. Like, where does the data sit? Who owns the data? Where's the IP, right? There's still a whole host of things that need to get sorted out that organizations are going to have to work through. But I do think that this isn't a, 2026, we have to figure out how we actually push work outside of our own organization, because organizations have been doing that. It's different in how you're integrating with your existing technology and your existing workforce. How do you get them working side by side? I do think, from your guys' perspective, there's probably a lot of parallels in the waves that you helped organizations through for, 15 years ago, right? There's a lot of parallels in how you thought about it then and how you need to think about it now, and kind of taking the same playbooks out and revisiting those. To answer this, is KPMG ready for it? Absolutely. We need to be ready for it. I think we have made leadership investments across the board, understanding that this is kind of the future of our business. We're investing in it. As you know, we took a very senior partner and made him the head of overall our innovation and AI program, the gentleman that ran our consulting business. So from where I sit, I'm excited for the future. It's not without a lot of work and a lot of change, and taking an organization that's been predicated off 130 years of rate times hour. We provide you an expert and you pay us hourly for that expert. Like, that model we know is going to pivot, but we know that it's coming, and we're investing into that future.
Okay, good answer. So final question, what's your one top recommendation for enterprises trying to make the most effective use of their ecosystems?
I think it's one of the words that I've used is intentional, right? I think a lot of organizations, not a lot, every organization has an ecosystem strategy. They're probably just not intentional, meaning they have third parties across the organization that they're using to help drive value. They just haven't been intentional, and they haven't elevated it to the leadership level, likely the C-suite, and they haven't baked it into part of their strategy, right? So go to your chief strategy officer, go to the C-suite, and make sure that you're being intentional about how you think about the disruption of your business model. Obviously, you should be doing what is my strategy, what is my business model in the world of AI, right? Like, that's the other, I guess, other helpful hint, not directly to your question, but you don't need an AI strategy. You need to rethink your business strategy in the world of AI and where we're going. And you need to know, as part of that, you don't need to go, and actually you can't go it alone. You're going to need an ecosystem to be able to navigate the complexity of that answer, right? So it's bringing both AI and ecosystem thinking into the boardroom to have a strategic conversation to guide the strategy of your enterprise for the next 10 years.
Right. Well, I wish you the best of luck crafting these ecosystems for all these complex enterprises that you work with. And it's always a pleasure talking with you and meeting it with you over the years and seeing how the world's evolving. So look forward to sharing this with our network, and thank you very much for your time today, Todd.
Absolutely. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for tuning in to From the Horse's Mouth, Intrepid Conversations with Phil Fersht. Remember to follow Phil on LinkedIn and subscribe and like on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite platform for no-nonsense takes on the intricate dance between technology, business, and ideological systems. Got something to add to the discussion? Let's have it. Drop us a line at fromthehorsesmouth@hfsresearch.com or connect with Phil on LinkedIn.